louder for them. Don't worry. All right, everybody. Welcome to the 103rd episode of Silicon Zombies.
Has it been that long?
Where you'll get the best brains from the Bay to beyond. Want to do a quick shout out to the audience here. Say hi, everybody. What up? Cool. Excellent. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the intersection of ethics and technology. We've got Olivia Gambelin here. We've got an amazing TED Talk.
Long to find the perfect
But you did it.
But you just
Can I get it up top? Yeah. Okay, cool. While we get started.
That was in a celebratory mode.
I know, but we worked with it. I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, of course. So big thanks to Narcodex. And so Narcodex, can we have them jump in the room here, Peter?
You know what? I want to just give Gabriel.
We could start with Primero Negocios too. That works. We've done this before.
It's all Gabriel. It is all you, only you. Go for it.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Peter. Well, thank you for allowing me to mention about Primero Negocios. Love your guys' podcast. So I just want to say, if you are struggling out there to navigate the ever-changing world of digital marketing, we got you covered. Through Primero Negocios, we are a platform of digital marketing experts and marketing strategies for businesses to help you reach the right audience for your company or for your business. And we got everything from social media marketing to SEO to automation on your marketing and to drive traffic to your website. So if that's you're interested in learning more, feel free to check the details on the podcast later. We will have the link, and just you can Google us on asprimeronegocios.com, and we'll love to talk to you. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks so much, Gabriel. We'll put your link in the show notes too. So if you're looking for new customers, digital marketing experts, talk to primeronegocios.com. And also our friends at Narcodex, who have done wonderful work for folks in our community for building products. So if you're building something that's on web or mobile, check out narcodex.com. That's NECODEX.com, and check them out.
And if you also want to join our newsletter, we actually have. I always am horrible at pointing. Except now,
Peter, you're the best pointer, Peter. Yeah.
Well, today I learned that it's top right. So top right here, but we actually have a
that's not augmented. That's real reality.
Oh, that's
okay.
It's RR.
Yeah. So Peter, introduce yourself real quick so we can get the show kicked off.
It's our 103.
A few people know you are.
Well, for those that don't,
Peter is the.
I'm the brand community manager at Intel.
Or sometimes the bread community manager.
Yeah.
He makes the bread. The money.
I guess.
That was stupid. Can we cut that, or is this live?
This is live.
Oh shit. Okay, whatever. So let's start with our amazing guest, Olivia Gambelin, who's the CEO at Ethical Intelligence.
Yep.
And you've given an amazing TED Talk, right? And so you said that technology, specifically AI, is a reflection of humanity. What did you mean by that, Olivia?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And it's great to be here, first of all, and lovely forest behind me. Thank you for decorating the office just for me.
Just for you.
Hey, welcome to the jungle. We got funny names.
Quite literally. I'm enjoying it. But yeah, Nick, so to go off your question there, I want to talk about real quick just bias. That is usually where people start off. They hear AI ethics, they immediately go to bias and fairness and wanting to see, elimination of unwanted bias in algorithms. They want to see gender equality. They want to see racial equality. So one of the best examples about how our technology is a reflection of our humanity is actually in bias. So when you see bias in an algorithm, when you see it in technology, that bias is actually coming out of the data. And data is based on people. It's based on our habits. It's based on who we are, how we interact with each other. So any bias that we're seeing in our technology is really a reflection of how we as people interact with each other in the world. That's just one example. But pretty much boil it down, our technology is a reflection of our humanity because we as humans are building our technology and we build in our image.
Do you think humans are inherently good? And therefore, that's kind of getting to the philosophical piece of it. But you want to touch on that?
Definitely ask the trick question here.
Yeah.
Because that's always a huge philosophical debate. It comes down to, are we inherently good? Are we inherently evil? I myself, title of this episode is Optimistic Ethicist. So I think you could probably call me predict. I'm going to say that we are inherently good. And a lot of times we're just trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Sure.
So it's, life is messy, but in the end, we want to be good.
So I'm
also sure you could make the argument that doing that is objective as well.
also.
Okay, we can, I think that
We've got subjective and objective parts of that.
there's a million places we could go. I think that there are some universal truths that are true. Like, for example, like kicking small children is bad, no matter where you are, no matter what culture you're from. Peter wants to jump on that one.
You want to go kick some children?
I mean, easiest counter to your argument would be like, I don't know, casualties of war.
But I don't think casualties of war is a good thing.
Right, of course.
No, but I mean, it exists, and people are not. It's not being hindered.
So you know what's really interesting? You were interviewed by Johannes Kastner.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant show, and I learned a ton from that. However, Johannes is a moral relativist, from what I understand, and it seems like you might have a different approach to truth. Can you help us understand what that is?
Yes, and I'm going to have to go really philosophically jargony right now, real quick, but I'll try and keep it pretty simple. So you've got in the world of meta ethics, which I swear has application over, but it is also a really tricky field. You've got relativism and you've got realism. What relativism means is our moral codes are all relative to ourselves. So that's
what
that's you.
Yeah. Peter loves being right.
Exactly.
No, I just like to be relative.
Oh my God, you mean relevant?
Well, but that's all like, I like to be honest, and that's relative to me, and that is my moral code, but it's not relative to anyone else. So moral code, according to relativists, is in relation to who you are and the people around you. Realism, which is the camp that I fall in and where Johannes and I had a great debate on, realism is this understanding that our moral code and our values exist outside of who we are as people. That's where there are objective truths. So like, I like to be honest because there is an objective truth of being honest is being good. I'm just using that one as an example.
Not because it's a social construct.
Exactly. Relativism sits around social construct. Realism is there is the capital T truth that exists.
So one could argue like one side believes that there is quote unquote like there is morality across all cultures. The other one takes into account culture to say what is moral versus not moral.
Yeah. So what I love here, and we really see this highlighted in our technology. So back to your whole thing of technology as a reflection of humanity, we really see this highlighted in our tech, because what happens here is we have universal values. So you'll see like transparency on the policy for AI ethics in China and also in the States. You'll see fairness in the UK and in Brazil. You'll see these common patterns throughout cultures, but it's how we actually apply them in action. That's where it really gets interesting. And that's where we see the difference of what can sometimes be seen as a subjective truth, but really it's just the cultural relativism that comes into play there.
But these big social networks like Twitter, Facebook, even Google for search, their maximize or their focus is engagement. So like if a neo-Nazi walks into a bar and yells a racial slur, he's going to get, or she will get, a ton of engagement. Maybe not good engagement, hopefully bad, but that's how these algorithms are optimized. So how can we make sure that the rules upon which we're building these networks are incentivizing the right kind of behavior?
Yeah, so you're hitting on a really good point here, Nick, is the whole optimization and incentive structures that exist within how we build our technology today. So when you've got a single point to optimize, such as engagement, you're going to see skews. Life is about balance. So is optimization. We have to have a balance of, we want engagement, but we want positive engagement. We want to maximize positive engagement. So there's 2 points here rather than just engagement at all costs. As soon as you start to maximize for only 1 point, that's where you start to see a lot of serious, significant ethical concerns because everything kind of goes out of whack.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So I have a question then. How do you quantify or how do you frame an AI on what is good or bad sentiment? This is just speaking from my own work. We use a platform called Sprinkler to look at Intel's like social media, and Sprinkler, as much as I love Sprinkler, the positive negative sentiment. It's okay.
Their stock is tanking right now. Just said that.
Wait, Sprinkler? Great. I hope they like look into this.
All right, be nice, or else you're going to get in trouble with Intel.
You're gonna come
But
after me.
that's a great question. How does that work?
So you're looking at sentiment analysis, right?
Yeah.
That's going to really be culturally dependent. And that's actually something very, very difficult to do. So we saw a big wave in emotion AI, and there was a lot of pushback that happened around there and around sentiment analysis because it's so inconsistent. It really comes down to individuals at times and also the cultural impact from that individual, which makes it incredibly hard to do sentiment analysis. And, 9 times out of 10, it's better just to learn as a person how to read other people.
Yeah, because there is a lot of nuance, which is also why I believe that like ChatGPT can never almost somebody.
It's got to get a lot more witty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's theoretically, it's dissecting the different points that make something funny. So you don't think we can reverse engineer that? I mean, AlphaFold with Facebook, they just were able to reverse engineer the genetic structure. Oh, you got something up your
Oh,
sleeve.
we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about comedy and artificial intelligence. Great. There are so many different genres of comedy, and
Yeah.
and more genres are being created to this day because comedy evolved with culture. When comedy is also speaking to the true definition of art, it is also a reflective representation of what we're going through society, but also more powerfully, it's a critique. So that kind of forces you to like think ahead, but also understand the nuance.
Yeah, I was just thinking like the foundational structure of what makes something funny, like timing plus surprise, like that could probably be understood by a machine.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit off
No.
track. Let's understand a little bit more about what you're doing with your startup and maybe how ethics is finding its way into product.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways that this is happening. I'm sure everyone listening has come across a conversation of ethics by now, which this day and age at this year, this is just a prevalent conversation, and now it's actually being brought into action. So I've been at this space for over 5 years. And
Wow.
I started out when I called myself an AI ethicist, and people looked at me like,
What's that?
"Are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
what disease is that? Like, what's going on here?"
you're like you'll understand in the future.
Exactly. Like, I'm a fortune teller right now, or a future teller or something.
Was generative AI around when you were starting?
No.
Wow.
No. When
Okay.
I was starting, gosh, it was all about recommendation systems, and it was a heavy focus on social media. And a lot of AI ethics at the very beginning was used more as a marketing ploy of, hey, we're good, this is cool, but nothing, it was hard to find any depth there in the industry. In academia, there was this rich field developing of looking at different ethical frameworks. How do they apply to our development? How does it apply to our technology?
Probably largely fear-based.
Yes, a lot of it was fear-based. Two of the earliest conversations came out around what is fairness and how do we embody that in our technology? Because who defines fairness? Is it equal opportunity, equal outcome? What does that mean? How do we actually make an unbiased data set? That was one big conversation. And then the other one was around transparency. You'll hear that a lot nowadays too. And that transparency is really making a resurgence around being able to understand how the machines are making a decision. Like what are the deciding factors? How is, say, a neural network that is typically a black box, how is it coming to the answer that it is? A lot of people are demanding, I want explainability. I want to be able to know. That way I have a certain trust and sense of security in that answer.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because that becomes part of their IP. I feel like, where do you draw the line for that?
Yeah, it's definitely an argument to make. The interesting thing around transparency is you can have transparency in the model itself, which is something that is very difficult to have because of IP, because of how companies are protective of that. Or you can have transparency in the output. So what were the deciding factors that determine that output? Like what data was set in and how's the output being used versus how did the input equal the output? If that kind of makes sense.
I like that because originally when I was here, like you have AI making decisions. That kind of, I don't know how I felt about it, but if I could actually go back and see the steps that it took to get from point A to point B, it's almost as if you're listening to someone explain the reasoning. And I feel like, at least for me, when someone does explain like their way of thinking, I find it more sympathetic.
You think the AI is ever going to be like, because I said so, or something like that?
Well, let's hope it doesn't come
Yeah.
to that. I hope let's hope it remains more open source and not like a black
Sure.
box.
Well, I think that was the original goal with OpenAI, and that's why Elon Musk had put a bunch of money into it, is to keep the power away from Google, because obviously Google and DeepMind were getting super powerful. Ironically, now it's now private, and they raised $10 billion from Microsoft. So maybe that in itself is an example of humanity, where something that originally was built to be altruistic and be able to help people and have transparency, now it's just another corporation with the goal of providing profit.
You could say the same about the internet.
Okay, nice. It's a good mic drop, Peter. I'm not even sure what to say back
Oh,
then.
well, because I was saying, like, with the internet, Web 1.0, everybody had a GeoCities website. You guys remember that GeoCities AngelList?
But the internet started off within defense, though.
Yeah.
So
it did.
so not
But then,
well,
well,
nonprofit.
think like, remember when everyone had Net Zero or like AOL Instant Messenger, and then everyone was, this is like the first startup time.
Yeah.
And there were companies starting up, like Webvan, for example, was essentially Grubhub before Grubhub, but nobody knew how to make money off of the internet except for Google.
Right.
And then advertising came in.
And they figured out. So let's
Essentially saved the internet.
let's get
Whole
back to
history
ethical
lesson
intelligence.
here, yeah.
What is ethical intelligence?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. So,
Yeah.
we've got the history of the internet, and then ethical intelligence was born, and the game changed. We'll start that there. So, ethical intelligence, we're an AI ethics advisory firm, and we specialize in something called ethics as a service. So, we've been around for 4 years. We started out really service-based, looking at how do we bring ethics to life in terms of our development. So, we focus on operations and strategy within a company. And really what we do is we focus on something called ethical innovation, which is the alignment of your business objectives, your technical objectives, and your values. Because what often goes missed in technology is the amount of value that sits in what is basically like your code of ethics. Like, for example, you set out, we believe in trust, right? What the heck is trust? What does that mean? How do I actually execute on that? So what we do at Ethical Intelligence is we come in and we say, okay, you want to embed trust. These are the steps. This is the process that you need in place. This is the training that you need in place. And here's some decisions that you're going to have to make around features or your data set that will inspire trust in your actual product. Let's call it an AI product. What that means and where the value comes in is, hey, I, as a user, trust this product. You know what that means? I'm going to be a really loyal user.
Less churn.
Less churn. We're significantly reducing churn there. And right now, we're in a crisis of mistrust. We're in a crisis of trust in this economy. With the onset of generative AI, there's a lot of, well, was this written by a person? Where did this come from? What to believe? What is truth?
Sure.
That trust factor is really going to make or break companies nowadays developing an AI. So that's one of the examples in terms of ethical intelligence. We look at trust. We say, okay, you want to build trust? Let's dig in. This is the operations and strategy you need to make the important technical decisions that result in trust and that knock-on value.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome to be able to show like A and B, like before EA or ethical or EI, I should say. So
don't worry, a lot of L's.
yeah. And it's interesting. Like we're doing something kind of similar with Boardwalk within the trust factor.
Yeah.
Being able to determine within supply chain space if one of your suppliers is able to deliver 100% of the time versus 90% of the time, should you diversify just to make sure you're going to get your product to your customer?
Yeah.
So can you maybe share an example of a customer or two that you've had some success with?
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Nick, too, we're really heading into what is kind of like the economy of trust, honestly.
You should coin that. I like that a lot.
I don't think I can claim it. I think I've heard it somewhere else, but
No.
I'll do it for you.
Yeah,
do
Peter.
I get a little sound?
Yeah. Peter, play the dreamy one. Right?
You're in the background trademark it.
Wrong one. You're fired.
That's ominous, like economy of trust. Here it comes.
Exactly.
No, so Nick, actually, to give you a great example, one of our companies that we've been working with now for 2 solid years, they're called Anyone Technologies, and well, they're called Anyone. I have to add technologies because if I say anyone,
It's anyone.
yeah, exactly. And we like to joke, if anyone can do it, so can you.
That's pretty clever, actually.
Yeah. They work really well. They actually just launched on Product Hunt 2 days ago, and they hit #1.
Wow.
Because they have all of this focus on ethics. They've built trust in this product. They've built trust in their network. It's a networking app.
Is there a chief ethics officer at this organization, or is that even a thing?
Well, once they grow, and if they were a larger company, so anyone's a startup. They are, I believe, Series A. They're small, but they're a nimble team. If they were a bigger company, they'd probably have a chief ethics officer. Right now, they have us.
I see.
So we're their ethics enablement team. So we have 3 of our experts that sit with them. We've got an expert network. It's over 80 experts strong. These are people that specialize in responsible and ethical AI. They run through our own methodology that we've developed over the last 4 years. And they sit with anyone's team and guide their engineers, their product decisions. They sit with their founders. Their poor founders half the time are coming to us, pulling their hair out, going, did I make the right decision? And we go, well, as an ethicist,
Yeah.
like, you're good. Or, hey, try it this way. Look at this direction. Like, for example, one of the things that we were working with them on is they really wanted their product to be available to children. Because the whole idea was you could talk to anyone in the world. And imagine, like, as a 10-year-old, I want to be an astronaut, and I could call an astronaut and talk to them for 5 minutes. How cool would that be?
Wow.
Like, that was the inspiration that this app was born on. And we looked at that and we're like, that's awesome. How do we make sure we enable this in a way that's safe and secure for children? You are dealing with children. That is a sensitive data set. That's a sensitive.
Yeah. Compliance doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And you have to build the trust there. One, screw up with children, you're done.
Yeah.
And so we looked at it and we're like, that's really cool. You do need age restrictions on here, but you know what you can do? You can partner with universities for like career fair days. So all of a sudden we were working with them going, how do we build trust with children and people that support children, so parents and teachers, how do we build trust in that product? And we were working with anyone and we were innovating. We were going, all right, here's a way that we can accomplish and help you accomplish that mission, that overarching goal in a way that's safe and secure, but also really innovative. I mean, imagine having that product come in for a career day and getting to talk to the astronaut.
And you'll obviously attract the right kind of people too, if that's one of your, if that's important to the company.
Exactly.
And so help us understand a little bit deeper of like where the rubber hits the road from a product perspective. Are you building frameworks? How are you collecting data points? How can artificial intelligence further our knowledge, maybe through machine learning? How does this work?
Yeah, so I'm going to break it down for you here, Nick.
Cool.
We got a couple different services, and then I'm going to talk about products. But I got to tell you about the services first,
yeah, of course,
because it'll make sense as we go. So we got 3 service packages. One's called Ethics Lite. It's a month-long process, and it's literally like, I'm starting in AI. I'm starting in this journey. What the heck is going on? It's like dipping your toes in and going, okay, I've got my mind around where my spectrum is of worst case scenario in terms of we screw up ethically, or best case scenario, we smashed it out of the park.
Yeah.
That's what Ethics Lite does. It's literally just looking at where do you stand currently.
Okay.
Either these are companies starting to enable AI within their company, or they're developing a product. It's basically like starting out with a cheat sheet of, hey, okay, I know where my roadblocks are going to be. I know where those red flags are going to be. I also know where to push this in terms of innovation and how to make it even better in the long term. That's Ethics Lite. It's just a quick.
Sure.
I've been told not to call it simple. I know it's not simple, but for me, I'm like, it's really fun. It's really cool. It's, we've done it so many times that it feels simple in the sense that it's really exciting, and we've really got that process down. So instead of being focused on being overwhelmed by ethics, it feels simple, and it feels like a relieving process. Like, oh, I get it.
Sure. It's like a light bulb for them, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to coin that. Ethics like a light bulb. Then we've got our product package. That's where we're literally just focusing on one product. These are for products that are already in production. That looks like an ethics audit. It's already in the market. You want to strengthen your approach. You want to strengthen that product and make it more robust. Or you faced a problem or like a little hiccup. Like, oh, we got to fix something. That's the perfect kind of product package where we're looking at how do we make this specific product better. That's very much focused on the technology behind it, what decisions went into building that product, how can we push it even further using this methodology, essentially called ethics by design. Like, how can we embed those values deeper into that product?
Before we get to the third one,
Yeah.
how can you make sure that these models are being architected and leveraged correctly? Because theoretically, it's human beings who are writing the rules to the algorithm.
And on top of that, is there like a way to keep it up to date?
Ooh.
You guys actually
Yeah.
said I'm going to talk about the third package because that's like it's just going to answer your question
perfect, yeah.
actually. No, but these are fantastic questions.
Mhm.
So the last package is basically called company ethics, and what that's doing is building the structure around the algorithms and the products that need to exist. So the really cool thing about ethics is it actually pulls together all of these different silos that naturally form in a company. You know, you got your product team, you got your tech team, you got your marketing team, and they all just kind of chat and do their own thing. They like their silos.
Sure.
When you are practicing ethics, when you've got a responsible AI initiative, you have to connect them. They have to talk.
Mhm.
And so with that company ethics, creating the workflows, the processes, the training, the dynamics that need to exist to enable the healthy conversation that exists around ethics. You know, ethics doesn't have to be this doom and gloom and I'm scared and everything's gone wrong. No, having the space to say, I'm a little bit worried about this is usually really relieving.
Yeah.
And you're probably not alone. You've probably got like,
Acknowledgement is step one.
exactly.
So I have a question about that. That what you just said earlier kind of reminded me of. I was listening to this podcast earlier. Name of the podcast is irrelevant, but I started thinking about how some companies make decisions as a way to be ethical, but other times they make decisions as a way to prevent them from being sued. Is there where's the line? And I guess which way is more ethical?
I love this question. So ethics for me, I conceptualize it as a tool. It's a decision-making tool. And it's two-sided. You've got the risk mitigation side, which is looking at safeguards. You're looking for things that go wrong. You're looking to make sure you don't hit headlines for a giant screw-up, right? That's what you're talking about, how not to get sued, how like legally compliant. That's kind of where regulation sits a little bit. You're just making sure that you do everything just enough right that you're not going to hit headlines for like this terrible company. What I love to do with ethics, though, and my favorite part of it is the flip side. It's two sides of the same coin, but the flip side of ethics is actually looking at innovation. This is where you are taking values such as trust or transparency or privacy, all of these values that we know have positive effect and positive gain and great return on investment for companies. You take those from the start and you design for them. You embed them into the technology using different architect decisions, different data management decisions, sometimes even just feature decisions in use cases have such implications for how the technology is using ethics behind it. It's that positive side of ethics that helps companies also reach headlines, but for being great companies in the world. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So I guess like the example I'm thinking of is YouTube was created for essentially people all around the world to create content and use that as a platform. YouTube, when they got bought out by Google, this is all my speculation, by the way. When they were bought out by Google, they wanted to keep that culture going, so they created an incentive program for creators, which is still the best incentive program to date. That's essentially like speaking to their ethics.
Yeah, that was their mission, that was their vision. You get it, and they designed for that. They brought it. They made sure it stayed at the heart. I mean, I talk to founders a lot that get very frustrated and worried. We've got this mission, we want to see it through, but how do I make sure that's actually carried out in the decisions that are being made? How do I make sure that, it's really easy when you're in the day-to-day to slowly just veer off until all of a sudden you're looking up and you're like, this is way over there. What happened? Ethics is that alignment tool that keeps you constantly asking, okay, does this get us closer to that long-term vision that we set out to do? Silicon Valley came out to change the world. Are we actually changing the world how we wanted to change it?
What do you think the role of government is in all of this? Because first the technology grows, and then it seems like culture and society end up kind of backfilling, and we're catching up to that.
So government has a really important role here in establishing the baseline. What I like to say is if you're compliant, then cool, you're one step above illegal. You can't really turn to your customers and be like, hey, guess what? We're not illegal. Not a good selling point.
Right.
But it does create that even playing field. having some level of regulation does really help companies say, okay, we've stood the test of time. This is, we see that we need to stay within these guardrails. The interesting thing about regulation, what happens when you are in ethics, you're working morality, and you are figuring out, okay, this is the outcome that we want, this is good, like this is good data management, for example. Once it becomes something that is kind of like a universal truth or universally applicable, then it moves into law. Then it moves into regulation.
Got it. More structured.
Yeah.
Peter, we have some questions here. Do you want to take something from the audience?
Yeah. Let's see. The words are really small.
And getting closer.
As a former educator, breaking through into public school systems can be a challenge. From the outside, it is easy to imagine what could logically impact the classroom in positive and innovative ways, but the entire system needs to be innovative. Use AI to improve public school systems to drive social change. There is already a massive data set. Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity. One of the things that I always try and stress is I'm not anti-tech. Sometimes ethicists can get a bad rap of like, oh, you're
Luddites or
yeah,
okay.
like, oh, you're going to come in and say tech is bad, tech is bad. I'm like, no, I think it's really cool. And we're doing some amazing things. It's how we apply it. It's what the use case of it is that really changes the outlook of that technology. And so when it comes to school systems, I know there's a lot of fear right now around teachers with the release of ChatGPT and students using it to write essays. Well, okay, is there a way instead that we can incorporate ChatGPT into the learning structure or into assignments where you're having to fact check it or dissect how it was constructing the sentences? Is this a learning point? Is this something that we can use to bring us forward rather than, derail us from the end goal of educating kids? We're back to educating kids, I guess.
Yeah, I was just talking to a teacher recently that said, I don't mind if you're using ChatGPT, just let me know when and where it was used.
Yeah.
Which is, I think pretty progressive.
We've been playing around with it at Ethical Intelligence. We have this quarterly journal called The Equation, and the next issue, it comes out in April, and it's on generative AI, literally ethical perspectives, the ethics of generative AI. And we are using image generation for all of the imagery in it, which I have to tell you, we have some weird images.
Through Dolly or?
Dolly, yeah,
okay.
yeah. I learned that I am not very good at prompting image generation. I have weird descriptions that end up with like floating heads in the middle of equations. And so I've been demoted from actually being able to do the images. But we're also using, we're using Notion AI and a mix of ChatGPT to generate the titles for the articles. It's not writing any of the articles, but we are using generative AI to help us name the articles that we've written and write summary points, just to show that kind of interaction and engage with the technology that we're talking about.
When you say Notion, you mean the document management platform?
Yes, they just released Notion AI, and I've been really having fun playing around with it.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
They're kind of a competitor, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, not at all. In fact,
that, right?
I just recently saw the integration was on the All In podcast. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
That's happening there. I happen to think a little bit more powerful, but it's another conversation.
This is a pretty good question that. How do we define AI?
How do we define AI?
Let's bring it back.
We probably should have started with that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
No. Great. I like the path that we're going.
Nice. Good.
So all preferences of I'm an ethicist. If you didn't know, if you haven't realized by now, I'm an ethicist, and my background is in philosophy. So I don't have that technical background, or I'm not going to give you that technical answer, essentially. But what I am going to give you is the human philosophical answer that I come from. And AI for me is a tool. It's a tool to help us as humans be more human. It's something that we get to use, and it can be a powerful creative tool that allows us to either automate things that are simplistic, augment our intelligence, or help spur ideas and creativity, as we're seeing now with generative AI. It really is a tool. It's not an end in and of itself. It always should be something that helps us actually reach our full potential, or I guess if since we started with a question around my TED Talk, in the pursuit of the good life, it helps us. Yeah, exactly.
It's weird though, because like if we think of what intelligence is, intelligence has always come from within to serve the human being. Now there's nodes, there's algorithms, there's models that are augmenting our own intelligence. So it's maybe closer to augmented intelligence than artificial intelligence.
Yes. And on that, I remember when I was doing my master's at the University of Edinburgh, there was this really interesting put on by Andy Clark, a professor at the time in cognition. And he was talking about, he's really fascinated about how our smartphones, as he was claiming, were an extension of our brains in the sense that we use our smartphones to offload a lot of our memory capacities. Like, do you remember anyone's phone number nowadays?
No, maps included.
Yeah, exactly. It's all on your phone. It's an extension of our cognition. And again, that's a very philosophical argument, but that is an example of us working in tandem with technology to help make sure that we know the phone number of our mom. Although I remember that one. Sorry, Mom.
I remember, going back on what you said, I remember I heard this quote, I don't know where, but it said that the younger generation with the with the reliance on technology is better at accessing how to play around with the information that we have versus where to find it, which is something that I guess applied more to Gen X, boomers, and older millennials.
Yeah, something that I find really interesting. So I've got a baby brother. He would hate the fact that I'm calling him baby brother. He's 6'3", so he's not really baby anymore.
You got to piss him off. That's your job.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I listen to him and his girlfriend talk all the time, and they talk about their algorithm as like another entity, not in the sense of like it's controlling them, but they'll sit there and they'll be on Instagram or something like that, and they'll go, oh yeah, I really like my algorithm right now. Like I did a good job training it. Like they get how it works.
It's like sentient.
Yeah. When we work on TikTok, that Intel is exactly how we talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too much. Hey, let's bring in Ruby here. Speaking of artificial intelligence, we've got Ruby Ye, who's the founder of Joya. Now, I think this is the big release as well, right?
Yes,
Ruby,
yes,
can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. You have the floor.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This is the public announcement since this was just founded last week. And so talking about artificial intelligence, first of all, I want to ask you a question. Thank you so much, Olivia. This is so important, especially since I'm just co-founding an AI startup. Europe has been sort of ahead of us, the US, right? In terms of like the privacy arena. So what would you say in terms of the global environment? Like where are the corporates that are really receptive towards, this AI ethics? By the way, I love ethical innovation. That is so right on.
Future client.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're pitching live here. Thank you, Ruby, and thank you for your question. And it's a great question. So the field of AI ethics and the atmosphere, let's say, started out in Europe first. So there was a lot of reception there. A lot of that was spurred actually by the GDPR, which if anyone's heard of it or hasn't heard of it, it's essentially European data privacy regulation. It's overarching. So if you're collecting data on European citizens, you need to follow the GDPR. It doesn't matter if you're not in Europe. There's a little bit of free advice for you right there. You'd be surprised how often that actually needs to be reiterated. But the GDPR really spurred the first conversations around almost lost the life again. Really spurred the first conversations around data privacy and data ethics. So Europe started to take the lead. We also saw that with the onset of the EU AI Act, which again, this is all regulation, but you have the high-level expert group that help inform that EU AI Act. They focus solely on ethics. So Europe led in terms of that governance side around the conversation of ethics. But to be honest, and I think the Europeans will shoot me in the foot right now, the States is now starting to take the lead
Not the Dutch.
Not the Dutch, yeah, exactly. Dutch, you're all great and amazing, and we'll say that.
Very bold.
Yes.
Very honest.
Yes. They would just say it to my face. But the U.S. has taken the lead in terms of ethical innovation, or at least has the opportunity to. Now that ethics is becoming part of the core of how you build a company and how you build technology, that's what the space is really good at. And so as this ethics conversation comes to life in our economy here in North America, we're actually seeing that shift away from the European markets as a leader and into the American markets as a leader in ethics.
Do you think that's why ESG is so prevalent and important in corporate governance these days?
ESG fits right into ethics. That's actually a metric we usually use with clients.
I see.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
because it feeds into environmental, social, and governance. No one really knows how to measure social, and that's where we really shine. So we work directly with companies on that ESG factor.
Okay,
especially
so like environment, we can measure carbon credits, but
Yeah.
you're able to measure social metrics in some capacity?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Which is it sometimes sounds kind of funky, but it is really, that is based in your ethical understanding of your product and the impact that it brings on your customers, whether that's another business or direct to customer.
Got it. And if you want to capture and hold all of those data points, Unity Central is the perfect place to do it.
That was a great pitch.
Right?
Very subtle.
Nice, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Ruby,
I'm really glad. So
Ruby,
what?
tell us a little bit more about what you're building, Ruby.
Yes, thank you so much again for that opportunity. So Joya.ai is a gamified AI app that rewires our brains for emotional well-being. So basically what it is like an AI buddy that will help us to feel a little bit more peace, joy, and success on a daily basis, moment by moment. So the inspiration for this is just being able to help millions of people around the world who are feeling so stressed out, so much anxiety, so much pressure in their daily lives, to be able to feel better moment by moment, a little better every day. So that's the inspiration behind
Wow.
it.
I think that's something we can all get on board with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. So Ruby, where can interested parties learn a little bit more? Is there a website or?
Yes. So we don't quite have a website, but if people want to learn more, they can go to Joya, JOYIA.ai. All right. And they can leave their email and then we'll be sending information to them. The thing I'm so appreciative about is when people hear it, they've been really excited. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, I want to keep in touch with you, please. Let me know when it releases because I really need it. Something that'll help them, again, just to feel a little better minute by minute.
Yeah, I can imagine the butterfly effect of that positivity just kind of ripples out.
Yes, that's the idea. So
That's
thank
wonderful.
you so
Well,
much.
thank you so much, Ruby, for sharing that. So what is the future of ethics in generative AI look like? Oh yeah, sure, please. We've got the founder of Robbie. Do you want to come up here?
Come join the jungle.
Because we got to get you on camera. Oh. Yeah. Here, have a seat. Have a seat right here, please. Yeah.
One of the most important things in what Burton was saying, is science happens by chance, right? There's no ethical basis to science. You discover something,
Yeah.
and it comes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's no ethics to science. This is 1930
Yeah.
writing, right?
Mm.
Which at the time, the nuclear science in the math led to the creation of nuclear bomb. And he was appalled by the whole thing, right? So you think, whereas other religions have got an idea. It says, do this. Science doesn't have it. It's just, so from that point onwards, for the last 50 years, people have been trying to recognize science basis. And now you're probably coming closer to the solution, right? Because, people have tried to create language symbols that would connect science and ethics. So they were very concerned about the fact that many of the scientific progress led to destructive bombs, right? And I just want to say that you can make ethics one of the sources of science.
Something
great.
I completely agree with you. And one of the things that's really interesting about ethics
Yeah.
is it's based on logic.
Yeah.
And philosophical logic, it really does look like a mathematical equation. Logical reasoning, we had the one branch off that came into philosophical reasoning and logic-based theorems, and ethics has grown out of that. The other branch of logical reading became mathematics.
Yeah.
So we do share the same root at the core.
Yeah, but there's a difference between math and so what Bertrand Russell called, which I agree completely, is that there are two parts to science. One is observatory.
Yeah.
Right? So I observe the world works this way.
Yeah.
The other is to improve the world. And to improve the world, I have techniques.
Yeah.
And we say the techniques require chance, idea. So you suddenly discover cellular phone. You suddenly discover internet. You suddenly discover things over which you have no ethical control. And so he says, under those conditions, the lack of agnostic ethics, it's not unethical, it's agnostic ethics. He says that then gives chance to powerful people to misuse it.
Yeah.
Right?
Would that be an example of normative ethics?
When you are moving on to, okay, you have the chance and the internet was created, and then now what? Yes, you're starting to apply ethics to something that's been created. And I had this discussion the other day too, where someone asked me like, well, can ethics ever get out ahead of technology? My answer, and I'm sorry to my other ethicists that disagree, but hey, it's a good debate to have. I would say no, because how we function with ethics and tech is very contextual.
So that goes to one more fundamental question.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, do the philosophers define the society, or the society defines the philosophy? Right? So again, if you're neutral to this, don't ask questions. Then you would say it's like a
cycle. Like an intersection.
The genetic
like a helix.
Helix.
Yeah.
Right? It works on each other. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes the technology works, sometimes the philosophy. But unless the philosophers are in control, there would be no ethics.
Yeah, well, then we would have the philosopher king from Aristotle.
From Plato.
Yeah, no.
So Plato, again, you go back to that, but the point is that if there could be some commonality. So I met a dean at Indian University and told him that every time you teach engineering, you must give them course on ethics.
Yeah.
So all the 4 years, you teach them ethics in some form or other, and they must. And I think we are at a point, and I'm glad that you are working on the ethics, because we are at a point where, the last 100 years, there was a mathematician called Dr. Hardy, right? And he wrote a book, and the last paragraph was, "I will die a happy man with none of what I invented was ever never used." Because he was scared that everything is going into the weapons business. So it's quite likely that many of the trajectories of these will end up in some, right? So if ethics can intervene and push it down to something, what social...
Yeah. We're 2 points here. I mean, ethics is a skill set. Like it is a skill set you can train. And so when you have a class on ethics in engineering, you're open to that conversation and working with someone that has the skill set of an ethicist. And that is a beautiful, beautiful relationship to have. The other point there, and you're hitting on all of these great big picture aspects, and I think I just lost my train of thought. And I'm trying to recover.
That was my fault. I distracted you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. There's so many great things here. With ethics, there we go. We're at a point in time, where we've done amazing things with our technology, and now we get to do amazing things with our ethics, so to speak. Like we actually are at the point in time where we're in control, and we can say, hey, we don't want to do that. We don't want that to go in that direction.
So the objection to technique, right, is that most scientific techniques and technologies require a cooperative idea, right? So in order to do something in technology, to have run internet, now I don't know how many people realize that it comes from the mining in China or wherever, the semiconductor chips are formed, then they made the computer server, the servers are hosted somewhere, so a huge level of cooperation. But the problem is that ethics is very individual. That a group ethics is tough to form.
It can be. But the cool thing is there's been so much research and so much development in this space to at least to start to figure out where are some of those core truths to build off of.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like what we do with tech. We test it. Does this work? Yes, no. Are we humble enough to say that didn't work, we're going to fix it?
Sure.
Or are we just going to keep plowing on? And that's the difference.
Okay, so I mean, I'll get out of the good question. No, one of my ethics,
Yeah.
right, springs from the fact that when a child falls,
Mm.
there's no logic, but yet everyone will go to pick up it.
Yeah.
That is the fundamental basis of ethics for me, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not predetermined, it's not logical. Nobody told me to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And yet, when a child forgets that.
Yeah.
Right? So when a child is in trouble, you help.
Mhm.
There's no dictum to say help a friend.
Yeah.
Right? So can we collect
Mhm.
all those and bring it up to something that is a good?
I think we can. And I'd say you're a realist just like me.
Yeah. So there are some.
Yeah, sure. For past 2.5 years, I was working on a project called Child Abuse and Neglect Detection using AI in clinical settings. We worked at a largest hospital in the East Coast. I would have named the hospital here given the privacy. And it's a silent algorithm that doesn't introduce itself,
Yeah.
but runs to support clinicians.
Yeah.
I think the question to you is that in clinical settings, when you spoke about GDPR, there's also HIPAA and several compliances.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on AI observing clinical information, such as not only like clinical notes, but also your DNA and my DNA, and storing it, and then possibly understanding it at one point? Maybe it could be smarter than us. So I think a lot of folks just stemming from that question is having fear about will AI be smarter than us. So what are your thoughts on several parts of this question? And
Yeah. All right. I got a lot to unpack here. And we at Ethical Intelligence have worked on similar cases, actually from the ethics perspective, working with health tech companies that help support clinicians. And there's so many layers here. I'll start first with the personal information, biometrics, everything. There are a lot of questions around that of, do you actually need that information? If you don't need it, don't collect it. That creates a lot of privacy and security issues. Each new data point that you're bringing in is another point where you can have a cybersecurity attack, especially when it's around health. That's really important. So the least amount of data, the better. It's okay. There's some really cool innovations going around about having what is kind of like an AI avatar where that holds your health information. That actually could be a really great innovation to be able to share information across hospitals. The important thing is that the patient is in control, that the people have the agency over their health information. It's their body, it's their health. Another point here with these kind of applications actually comes into the relationship between the AI and with the clinician themselves. And it kind of goes to your point about people being afraid of one day the system being smarter than the person. This comes back all the way to the beginning. I'm great at doing these loops right now. Technology is a reflection of humanity. That technology has learned the information based off of how we as humans developed our medical system over hundreds of thousands of years. So we are still feeding in the information into the system. And with that too, it's very important to watch that relationship between the clinician and AI. There's a great opportunity here again for clinicians, nurses that are tired, being able to have something to gut check a decision on, or something that can say, hey, you might have missed, like based on our data sets, you might have missed a symptom here, go check again. Great support tool, where the problem and the trouble starts coming in is the AI system can't touch, they can't feel the person. So if that person's sitting there screaming in pain, the AI can't touch that pain, where the doctor can. And if the doctor is ever feeling doubt in their decision because they're like, well, the system's telling me one thing, but I clearly see another. I have more concern that the doctor's going to default to the system, even though they see it and they're touching it and they're like, I know that this is right.
More importantly, what you said in the beginning of what you started saying.
No.
That I think the true ethics at this point in time is control of information. It's control of information. What is being told to me must be gated very, very carefully. So I feel that what I call the Google effect, which is uncontrolled, unguarded information. When average common man walks around, me saying Google, and it will come cities or something like that, and then he walks around looking for a cure in that for that. So it's completely easy often. So this I don't want to push unity control here, but that's a real focus thing. That try to control the information that gets into a space and put a lot of control there, right? So do not measure. So, for example, just 3 days ago, my news in India, we had a son, he had a high temperature, right? And my brother is a doctor, so his grandfather, right?
Yeah.
So, but yes, we look at the temperature on 105. So then they just measured, because we can measure today, they measured the oxygen level. As soon as they measured the oxygen level, they took him to the hospital. Yeah, and as soon as they took him to the hospital, mechanically, it's all part of the HIPAA problem, right? They immediately put an IV on him, right? Because the HIPAA demands that after this process, you must do it. So they put an IV. Now here's a 4-year-old kid, all he had was 105 degrees temperature, but he's now on IV feeding.
Yeah.
And they're feeding food to him. And so where did it go wrong?
Yeah.
It's really the air, whatever oxygen, in the hands of an amateur.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been there, right? So they go right? So unwanted information is really, in my opinion, the current unethical state of the world.
You know, we used to be taught how to find information. Now we might need to be taught how to filter information.
Yeah, and also
exactly.
And also there is a whole set of books in India and about you can't. I mean, just like you said, you can touch it.
Yeah.
So how can I listen to you if you are not there? Right? I can only listen to you as long as you are with me. Right? You say, "Get me coffee." That is personal. But if I read, "Get me coffee" somewhere, it's impersonal. Right? So that impersonal information requires huge amounts of care.
Yeah.
Right? To filter. Right? It's what in Sanskrit they call it. The Sanskrit they call it non-human. So Google, I mean, the internet is non-human. Nobody, I can't see a personality behind it most of the time. Right? So it becomes non-human. Right now, how do I interpret what you're saying? I mean, right? I knew my friend. You know my friend.
Yeah, and this is what I like to stress too, especially with systems. You know, they are really good at a certain type of intelligence. But we as humans, we have so much more intelligence. Where we have inputs from our senses, we have inputs from our emotion, we have inputs from logic, we have inputs from facts that we've studied for years. That's all of our intelligence encompassed, whereas artificial intelligence is usually more just focused on that logical intelligence.
That's what we're trying to do. For example, my favorite thing in Unity concept, for example, is this, that we don't, in normal days, we don't use the words that we expect to use in English, right? We have our own slang, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
I run the company, right? And the CEO, Andy, the communication between me and Andy is very coded, right? So I use this example. In India, when a guy crosses the car and the car driver comes closer, you say, in Hindi you say, "Government बोलता है," मतलब, did you sell your home and car? Right? Which implies, if it translated in Google, it means nothing in that context.
Yeah.
But what are you saying? Did you sell your home that you're going to die today? and therefore it came across in front of me, right?
Yeah.
It's a loaded client.
Yeah.
And we operate in loaded clients, and that is more ethical than impersonal statement, correct?
I think just to close it off, I would just like to, for Olivia to say like that the system, as you're telling me, will be helping us, and the final words around that, I guess, and how AI ethics and AI can possibly help us and to proceed further and for a brighter future.
Yeah. I have this innate belief in humanity that, maybe it is a little bit different than some people have, but I believe people are inherently good. Bringing back one of the original questions again, which means that I think we're here to do, we're trying to do good. We're trying our best. We're trying to figure it out. Life is weird and messy, and that's okay. And we have these tools, these systems that can help us. We're at a crux in time where we're asking ourselves, how are we going to use these tools? How are we going to respect ourselves enough to understand that humanity is something special and it's not a zero-sum game, or it's me versus the AI, or the AI is smarter than me. It's how do I work with these systems so that together as a society using these tools, we can improve ourselves together and grow together, and have that respective information exchange and know when to rely on an algorithm and when to rely on your gut. Yeah.
I don't know if that makes us
That's what we
cyborg.
call
but-
that.
Thank you
We
so
are
much.
finding a term called natural intelligence.
I love natural intelligence.
Love
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
fundamentally a combination of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to do this. We're at the top of the hour, but I want to give a round of applause.
Woo!
Olivia, amazing job. Olivia, where can we learn more information?
Yeah, absolutely. So check us out. We're at www.ethicalintelligence.co. We've got tons of resources on AI ethics. You can learn more about our services and our up and coming product around managing responsible AI and ethics within your corporation. You can also find The Equation, which is our quarterly journal. You can find us on socials. And you can find me all over the internet on giving different talks that if you like what I say.
Including a superb head talk.
Thank you. Thank you for the pitch. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Do you want to lead us out here? Here we go. Really have thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in not next Tuesday. We're moving to the first and third Tuesday every month. 5 p.m. Be sure to tune in for more of the best brain, Beta Beyond. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah.